Welcome folks, welcome back to my channel again. So we have been through a couple of video series on how one could make into an academic career, especially through the FPM program at IIMs. So if you have not watched my previous videos on how to make it to an academic career, please go and watch them, because then this is the continuation and a part of that. So you can watch that and then come back. So you have it up here, please watch and then come back. So today what we're going to discuss is a continuation from my last video or last to last video based on what are the expectations from you post the FPM or the PhD program. And what do I mean by that? So you are mostly going to enter an academic or a research career after the PhD. And so what I'm trying to do here, I'm trying to list down a couple of things where things might be useful for you to understand whether you want to take up all these kind of tasks, and whether also this is something which is useful for you to go further with this program, right? So fundamentally, if you had watched my last video, I'd already talked about how research potential is something which is an important part of the FPM program, and hence that is something which you would be tested for when you apply for the FPM admissions. Now, if you become a faculty at one of the IIMs or any other top institutes in the country, they would be looking for a certain set of factors. This is what we'll be discussing in this video coming up. Right, so let's look at the first element that's here. So the first element on the block is about research. So as usual, like any other person who has done a PhD, you're trained for research, and hence what you're expected to do is also research, which means that you read papers, you write papers, you collaborate with other researchers, and you come out with good papers and you send it to good journals and get them published. So this is the first task. But then, like what mostly happens, let's look at how things happen usually. Like when you look at a professor, when you go to your college, all that you see him do is teach in the class. That's all that you see him do, right? But that's not the only task that is there in at least, let's say, some of the top universities or top institutes that are there in the country or even abroad. So apart from teaching, which is something which is known to us, there are certain other elements. Like for example, there is something called corporate training, where faculty kind of takes up assignments or takes up training assignments for the corporates and trains people to do things. So this is something which is done by people who are actually in academia. So you can see that there is a connect between industry and academia in this form. And what happens usually is that when you take up corporate training, it also happens that people can move into consulting assignments or consulting projects with these same corporations, and that's how your consulting career could also take off. So what I'm trying to say here is that you see, research is like the core of all the things that is done here. So when you're trained in research, it gives you the fuel to kind of teach, it gives you the fuel to kind of go and do corporate training or consulting programs. And there are some people who may even take up government projects. So that's another avenue of income and also a different facet of the job. And apart from all this, a different aspect is institution building. So what is institution building? So institution building means that you take up an administrative role. Like you could be the chairperson for the MBA program or the doctoral program, or you could eventually become a dean or a director. So that is the position. So if that is the route you want to take, then that is also something which is available. So you see, research, teaching, corporate training, consulting, institution building, there are these multiple facets that are available. So compared to, let's say, a corporate career, when you think of academics, you would think only of teaching, but that's not the case. You have multiple elements that come together and that form a career, right? So which means that you get to do multiple things, which means that you do not. So if you're a person who gets bored by doing just one thing, then you can also consider this as a career, because you get to do multiple things and you don't just get stuck with one thing. So that's a good thing, right? So let's try to understand, why do faculty have to do all this in the first place? So the first reason is that it's about building your own knowledge. So the whole idea of doing a PhD or doing research or doing any of these activities is about having your knowledge base built and contributing to a field of research. That's the esoteric aspect of the things, right? What is more real is that there are two other things which people try to build through this career. One is their own reputation. Because see, the better your research and the better that it moves into a better journal, or the better the kind of corporate clients that you have for your consulting or training work, the better is your reputation throughout India and throughout the world even, right? The other aspect which I'm talking about is something which came to my mind because of an audience out there. So I'm talking about Manish. So Manish had asked a question on how is the tenure system different? What is the difference between tenure in India and the US? So in India, you don't have something as specific as a tenure to start with. So we have something similar that is being brought about. So what happens? So what is a tenure? Tenure is like, do you become permanent? Do you become a permanent faculty after a couple of years? And to become a permanent faculty at an IIM, you need to do you need to carry out all these activities which I just mentioned, and you need to do it with a certain level of credits that is awarded to you. And if you have a certain number of credits that is awarded to you within, let's say, 3 years or 2 years or 5 years, depending on the IIM, then you actually become permanent. So this is another reason why people try to do all these things. So at the initial stage of your career, it's important that you actually go about and do all these factors so that you actually get tenured, and you also build a reputation apart from the knowledge, of course. So this is what you're overall expected to do post in FPM. If you're taking up an academic career, these are the set of things that you will do. Of course, there could be more things that you could think of, but largely they are these things. Now, why is this important? Now, this is important because understanding this would help you understand how can we approach the application process in the first place. So if you look at the application process, there are multiple aspects, right? For example, the SOP, the research proposal, the letters of recommendation, and a couple of other things. So the reason that, for example, SOP is there is like they're trying to understand that would you be interested in doing at least some of these things, right? Now, those are the things which we would kind of discuss in the next video, and stay tuned for that. Thank you. Hey guys, again, I hope you got something out of this video, and if you really liked what you're watching, please like, share and subscribe, and leave all your valuable comments below, because the more you put your comments, the more I'll be able to respond, and the more that this community builds up and all of us get to learn something out of it, right? So there are more videos coming up from my side, and I'm sure that we stay on this together, and you would definitely able to crack this admission, and probably we'll meet here at some time, right? So see you again.